Good evening and welcome to the February 25th, 2025 Park and Rec Commission meeting. We'll go ahead and get started. It's 6 o'clock right on the dot. We'll go ahead and stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, and just a friendly reminder to please turn off your cell phones if you haven't done so already. And we'll start with roll call.
Hale.
Present.
Cornwell.
Present.
Tuzik.
Present.
Noyes. Varanich. Snyder.
Present.
Zebel-Wolf.
All right, any amendments to the agenda this evening?
We have none.
Perfect. Ceremonies, announcements, appointments, presentation. It looks like we'll be doing some staff introductions.
So the first group we're going to bring up forward is our recreation division. So Traci will do those introductions. We wanted to bring some people forward because we've had a lot of changes and turnovers, and it was reminded to me that it's been a while since we've actually let you guys see the people that really do all the work. So we'll be having recreation and then followed up by urban forestry.
Good evening. I'm Traci Stevenson, the Recreation Manager. We're missing a couple of our team just because you've already met them. You know Haley and you know Kristen, but we thought we'd highlight some of them. This is Jason Wiley, our Recreation Supervisor, one of them. He brings over 20 years of experience to our team. He's a University of Idaho graduate and the master's of, has a master's in recreation and sports administration, a certified Parks and Recreation professional. He spent 19 years in Sandpoint, so we were really lucky to snag him from Sandpoint to come out here to work with us as their Parks and Recreation Service Superintendent. He has a great passion for outdoors, so we've really been tapping into his outdoor recreation, and he excels at creating recreation opportunities for everyone. When he's not working, which I'm not sure is when not, between driving from here to Sandpoint, he's still making a long commute for us, but he loves hiking and biking and paddling his kayak out in nature. His expertise and enthusiasm make him a vital part of our community recreation. So we're super happy to have him. And yes, he makes an hour and 15-minute drive because he loves us and he wants to serve our community. His counterpart that works with him is Summer Vogan, our recreation coordinator. She focuses mostly on our youth sports and camps, but we all cover a little bit of everything, but that's kind of her big area. She was born and raised in Thailand. At the age of 15, she moved to Taiwan to pursue her education in Chinese and English. Her journey's taken her across the globe. She's lived in Montana for 4 years, and she decided to move back to Thailand to raise her boys while her husband was working in Afghanistan. In 2016, she came back to the U.S. and made Coeur d'Alene her home. Before joining us, she spent 5 years working for Special Needs Recreation organization, where she gained a lot of experience in community service. She considers her role in the recreation department a true blessing, as it allows her to combine her passion for the outdoor activities and her desire to help others. Outside of work, Summer's super busy, but she enjoys hosting events with friends, hiking, attending church, spending time with her family. She's happy to be here with us, and we feel really lucky to have her. So we just really recently got her, and she jumped right into youth basketball, so that's always a enlightening opportunity. She's done really well with us. Traci, you've met before, but I think there was a couple absent, so we decided, you know what, we're going to make it a party and bring everyone. Traci's our other recreation supervisor. She has a total of 17 years in municipal parks and recreation. She did 14 years of recreation in Colorado, 7 years in Missoula with the county fairgrounds and the Western Montana Fair, 4 years with the YMCA, and 2 years with the YWCA. She's been with us just about 3 years. Time flies. I'm always like, oh, she's the new one. Oh my gosh, 3 years is not new. She does, like I said, she does a lot in our department, covers a lot of areas, but she actually oversees the camp, which Craig and summer run, but she does a lot of administrative work with it. Does all our craft fairs, our bridal fair, movie nights in the park, our safe sitter, youth and adult volleyball, and all our tournaments for volleyball. Her favorite things to do are also exploring outside with her pup and discovering a lot more about Idaho, movies, and going to new restaurants. And we are excited. We have a really good team, so these people are all awesome. Craig works under her. He's our recreation coordinator. Before coming to the city of Post Falls, he worked as a recreation coordinator for 3 years at Real Life Ministry with their sports and outdoor program. And before that, he worked 6 years as a patrol deputy at Kootenai County Sheriff's Office. So that helps with him working flag football. He's our camp director, works our flag football, little athletes, our tiny hoopsters basketball, dodgeball, and a few other special events, mother-son, father-daughter events. Craig is married, has 4 cute little kids. He enjoys spending his time with family, including he coaches all his kids' sports teams. He likes listening to music, enjoys playing, and writing his own songs. He really is a talented musician. He just wouldn't put that in his little bio. Craig likes outdoors and exploring new areas. He loves fishing and discovering new areas to fish. He enjoys watching and playing sports. His favorite football team is the Green Bay Packers. So that's our team that we're lucky to get to come to work every day and hang out with and spend a lot of evenings and weekends together. So thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Welcome, you guys. Thank you.
Members of the commission, good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Preston Hill. I'm the urban forester for the city. And while we don't have brand new employees to introduce, I figured with the prospect of our subcommittee and the Parks and Rec Commission merging, I thought we'd get out in front of you and introduce ourselves so you get to know us a little bit. So we are a pretty small division. We have 3.5 full-time staff. 4.5 full-time staff, one of which is not here tonight. His name is Randy Sennell. He's been an ISA certified arborist for 15 years, and he heads up on our arboriculture field crew. So he spends most of his time working in the parks doing tree pruning and removals and planting, and then also in the public rights of way working on city street trees. So his partner in crime here is Tyler Stuger. Tyler's been with us 3 years now. 3 years. He's been an ISA certified arborist for 2 years. And so he rounds out the arboriculture crew with Randy. Daniel Lambert is with us here. He's our natural areas and trails technician. And so he helps manage the 650 acres of natural area that we have in the city and over 12 miles of natural surface trails. So your position was new 2 years ago? Yeah, almost 2 years ago. So, and then we also have a 6-month seasonal employee. Alex is her name, and she came to us about a month ago from the city of Spokane, and she'll work with us until summer.
Nice.
So, kind of who we are.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Nice to meet you guys.
Thank you. One of the things, hopefully it kind of jumped out, is that we have a variety of people from a variety of backgrounds, interests, but there's one thing that they all have, and that's that dedication to serving the community of Post Falls. You know, and that's really the heart and soul of our department. It's why we're here. And they go through a lot of training, trial by fire, but they continue and they show up for work and they're still smiling, so that says a lot. And we thank them. I said at the start, they're the ones that do all the work. Well, it's true. So.
Well, thank you for
Okay.
coming and introducing yourselves first time or second time around. I like putting a face to a name, so thank you guys. All right, declaration of conflict. We'll go ahead and do the consent calendar. Approval of minutes for January 28th.
I'm not sure if we have enough. There's only 2 of us that were here in January. What's your,
Yeah, you
Take
can
on that.
still
We could
vote
still-
to approve.
okay,
That's not an issue.
Okay.
You can also, Now, if you all abstain, then we just hold it till the next time, but you're here, you have a
Yeah.
quorum, you can vote.
Okay, perfect.
Okay.
Then I'd move to approve the minutes from January 28th, 2025 as presented.
And I'll second.
Dusick,
Aye.
Hale,
Aye.
Snyder,
Abstain.
Cornwell.
Aye.
All right. Any citizen issues that we know of this evening?
I see none.
I see none. All right. Moving on to new business. Presentation on impact fees from Melissa Cleveland.
Yes. And while she gets ready, I'm going to let staff, if they wish to leave, they can, or if they wish to stay, that's fine too, but
All right. Looks like this is good. Hi, I'm Melissa Cleveland, and I'm with Welch Comer Engineers, and I'm managing this development impact fee study update for the city of Post Falls. And I don't think I've met any of you before. And so I just wanted to explain kind of who I am. So I'm an engineer with Welch Comer. And the reason I tend to get involved in these impact fee studies is because a few years back, I was the community development director for the city of Hayden. And so I understand that side of it. I understand how the fee reports are implemented and used from, when you apply for your permit. And so I kind of bring that side of it. And then the team, it includes FCS, which is the financial consultant. That is the bulk of the analysis that goes into the fee calcs. And they're based on, Welch Comer is based here. We're in Coeur d'Alene, and FCS is a Portland area firm. So it's also just a little bit easier for me to come and update people like you than bring them in from Portland. And then Iteris rounds out the team. They are a transportation modeling group. So doesn't affect the parks part of the fee, but there's quite a bit of modeling that goes into the transportation fee. And so they run, I don't know if you're familiar with KMPO, but they are the metropolitan planning organization for our area, and there's a big regional traffic demand model, and Iteris is who's qualified to run that model and do that end of it. So that's the team. Just wanted to kind of introduce that. Let's see. So as we get in here, we're in phase 1 right now. We're towards the end of phase 1 of that's all that the city council has authorized at this point. And what the reason this got broken into 2 phases is that there were some studies that were ongoing, so we couldn't really move on to actually calculating the fees quite yet. But there was a lot of work that could still be done in phase 1. And that was kind of looking at the methodology and seeing if the way things were calculated before, because the city does have impact fees now, if there were some adjustments that should be made. So there was quite a bit of work to look at the growth and the different methodology, and also to just consider some alternatives that maybe weren't considered before, and kind of work through those things. So the Planning and Zoning Commission for the city, they act as what's called the Development Impact Fee Committee. So they've had a series of workshops with us as we kind of work through that. But we wanted to come and update you all, particularly on the parks side of it. So this won't be the end, because even when phase 1 ends, hopefully the city council will move into phase 2, which might have some more involvement from you all. So phase 2 will include the capital improvement plans. Now the city, all the different departments can have capital improvement plans, or probably do. We're specifically looking at the impact fee component of the capital improvement plan. So what is growth eligible? Because that's what the impact fee is calced on. And then the report, and then helping the city move towards implementation. So I'll just run through this pretty quickly and see if you guys have any questions. But in general, in the simplest form, the impact fee is calculated by looking at the eligible cost of planned capacity increasing facilities and then dividing that by the growth in the system. So for parks, it's generally looked at your CIP, so your capital improvement plan. That can be land that needs to be purchased, and that could be all sorts of different improvements in the park system to serve growth, right? Not stuff that you currently need to serve your population, but to serve growth. And then divide that by the growth in system capacity. And a lot of times that for parks is just population, so growth in population. And then that creates your impact fee charge per unit. So some considerations that we have with this phase one is, and these are the things that kind of impact you all. So we've been looking at, currently you don't have, the parks fee isn't applied to non-residential uses, and it could be. So that could be for commercial buildings, but it could also be for overnight visitors, like hotels, RV parks. And I'll kind of get into kind of the why on that. It's not something that has to be implemented, but at this point it's something that we're at least considering. Right now, the city also has a separate multimodal fee, and it's been a little clunky to use, I guess I'd say. And so there's some consideration to wrap that in to the transportation fee and the parks fee. And so items that were multimodal, sidewalks, bike lanes, that were clearly part of the transportation system would get wrapped into the transportation fee, and then other things, shared use paths, maybe trails that go through a park or around a park would be wrapped into the parks fee. Another item is that we're considering scaling the fee for single-family homes. So if you build a smaller home, you have a smaller fee, and a larger home would have a larger fee. That's something that right now it's just charged per dwelling unit, but that's something that can be considered to maybe reach a goal of the more attainable housing, or getting people, the developers, to be a little more eager to build the smaller homes that might be cheaper. And then also just considering land uses. That part is not really for the Parks Commission, just kind of going through and figuring out if those are the right land uses to charge fees on. So another thing that we're considering is having a city center zone that has different fees than the rest of the city, and it might be something that's considered for parks. I mean, I think it will certainly be considered for transportation, and it might be considered for parks. So if there's not as many park facilities that are planned in that city center zone because it's already kind of developed, then it could be an opportunity to have lower fees in the city center zone, which might encourage development. So we're going to, in phase 2, run the calcs both ways. I think the goal is that if the fees turned out to be lower, then it would make sense. If they didn't, it probably isn't worth the administrative headache of having 2 zones. Another thing to point out here is that the planning area and the city limits aren't necessarily the exact same thing. The dashed line is the city limits currently, and then the blue is kind of this planning area. It's really more relevant on the transportation side of things because we're using that model like I described, and so you kind of can't jog around, and you can't have holes in the model. And so there's areas of the city that, completely surround a pocket of the county. So that kind of has to be part of the planning area, if that makes sense. So then we've worked on population and growth forecasts. There's a ton of work that I won't bore you with that went into this, kind of a lot of back and forth and back and forth. And we do like to stay consistent with KMPO, that Metropolitan Planning Organization, and we're now where we're consistent with them. So the growth rates and the growth is really similarly to what they're also projecting, and then these numbers are also reflected in that transportation model. So everything's balancing the way it should. Okay, so your existing methodology is based, if you look at just the parks part, it's based on what we call kind of a level of service based fee. So it's based on like incremental expansion of facilities to meet future needs. And I'll get into it a little bit more. We're still gonna do that, but we are gonna come to more of a CIP based. It's gonna be kind of a hybrid. And that's just because since your study was done before, there's been some more recent court cases where they want a little bit more nexus. They want to be able to say like what the projects are that you're collecting a fee for, not just a blank slate, if that makes sense. So we're still going to have flexibility within that, but that's kind of where we're headed. Okay, so that statement that says the table hasn't changed, that was for the Planning and Zoning Commission. So you've never seen it, so it's new to you. So what this shows is that there are quite a lot of people that work inside the city but don't live inside the city. So that's where the consideration for a non-residential fee comes from. So then we estimate the hours that an employee, that works in the city of Post Falls but doesn't live in the city of Post Falls may use your park system. And so that helps us to calculate how much of the impact of an employee that lives here but doesn't, or that works here but doesn't live here, how does that relate to the impact of a resident? And so we've calculated that as 4 jobs equal 1 resident. So it's still it's less impact, but it's not nothing. And so maybe that should get spread in that way. And then also the park demand from visitation. So we've looked at the anticipated increase in lodging and RV units over the next 10 years and been able to calculate growth share of that. So the park's level of service, this is something that's been a little bit in flux, so these numbers might change just a tad. But what we've been looking at is the level 1 parks and the level 2 parks with your current policy with level of service. We don't need to get too hung up on this. You're a little bit under on level 1 parks and a little bit over on level 2. And the level 1, which you guys probably already know, but is the more active, developed type park, and the level 2 is a more passive kind of natural type park. So what that means is that based on level of service, you might be a little constrained on how much new parkland you can develop over the next 10 years, but the numbers are still really high. So, I mean, you could still justify, 350 acres of park. So I don't, that's why I said don't get too hung up on it, because it's still a big number. It's not like you're going to get in a situation where you're constrained, really, But we'll still adjust this if we get some new numbers. So the issues that we've been working through that have to do with parks are these in the table, and I'm not going to spend too much time because I know you have other things on your agenda, but the ones I really wanted to point out are that the CIP currently are just level of service based, and a plan based system with a capital improvement plan is a little more defensible. And so what we're looking at is a hybrid where the things and impact fees, CIPs generally look out 10 years, whereas like your plan based fee, your master plan probably looks out 20 years. Right, so it's looking at a smaller amount. So the things that are pretty determined, we can have in the CIP. The things that are undetermined, like land, maybe you have no idea where that would be or how much it would be, we can have kind of in a level of service type section of the CIP. So we're going to work with Dave and his team to lay that out in a way that's transparent and defensible. But that'll mostly come in phase 2. The other ones I wanted to point out is that, let's see, the single versus 2 zone service area, the last one on there, it's probably the most defensible, though I think the way you're doing it now is fine. I just think that we consider it in phase 2. Like if that makes sense and there's a way to reduce those fees in that area, I think that would be fine. So let's see. So impact fee cost allocation, that first one, that's the one where we're at least going to run the numbers and see how things land, but you could scale the fee for the single-family homes. It would have the strongest nexus between development and parks facility needs, and that's a good thing because it's just a little more defensible. Really no change on some of the others, and then the exemptions there at the bottom, like currently you don't charge for ADUs, but if we scaled the fee, so the fee for an ADU would be much lower than for a single family home, maybe that starts to make sense. To have a small fee, it's just kind of how you cut up the pie, I guess. So that might be something that gets considered. That would also allow for fees to be charged for additions on houses. Okay, so scaling by home size, this is where the data kind of comes from, and it's not like you keep going up and up and up. So somebody builds an 8,000 square foot house, their fee doesn't keep going up. It really does kind of max out around 3,500 square feet because the data just doesn't show that a much larger house has much more residents. Or occupants. So I just wanted to kind of show you that. And then current fees with scaling. This is an example just because people are having a hard time wrapping their head around it. So this is the total fee, not just parks fee in this table. So don't think that that's your parks fee currently. This is the total impact fee. So it kind of will show you at the bottom here how the fees may change if you scaled it for various size homes. So a cottage home that was maybe 1,250 square feet, it would go down quite a bit. A townhome, it would go down. An alley loaded type house, it would go down. And then you've got your standard home, it would be basically the same. And then your estate home would be a little bit more. Hopefully that makes sense. This is parks fees if we scaled them. So the parks part of the fee, again, the standard home is kind of that average size home, so there would be basically no change. The cottage homes would go down, and then the ADUs today aren't charged at all, so of course that would go up if that policy changed. This is if we use, and this is what I wanted to point out is this isn't the new fee, right? Because this is taking your existing fees and doing this new methodology to it. So these will never be the fees because we're going to recalc them. We just haven't gotten to that stage yet, but here's how fees would be adjusted if non-residential and the lodging was included. and it doesn't really lower the fee that much. So we'll have to see what happens when we calc the fees in phase 2. I still think it's a consideration just to equitably spread the impact, but that will most likely be, something that the planning and zoning and the council have to decide what's important. Is it important to equitably spread that so that the fees for residential come down a bit, or is it important to keep the commercial fees as low as possible to encourage that type of development? So both are allowed, but it's just how they want to do that. So our next steps, what we're doing is preparing these kind of issues papers, and city staff will review those, and it just goes through all this methodology. I am presenting to council in April, at which point I think we're pretty much done with phase 1, and then phase 2 will start. Any questions? Exciting stuff, I know.
Informative.
Yes, a lot of information, but
Okay.
yes, we appreciate it.
Well, there you go.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The one thing I wanted to add to you folks is when Melissa shared that we were short on the level 1s, she referenced kind of updating the information, and that's what we're working on right now. We have just received from GIS their polygon-based, what they're looking at for acreage in that. We're also, and pretty much we were close on what we had. There's a few areas that changed, and there's some we knew were changing. That's why we asked them to do it. Centennial Trail was one of the big things. But we're then also pulling some of our deeds that we have for some of the parks and going off of that. So making sure we have those numbers correct. The final thing on that is we're looking at those parks where we share the levels, level 1 and 2. Those are some of our bigger parks. That's your Kiwanis, Black Bay, I'm trying to think, Falls Park, Chameleon Park. We've done improvements and we've done that, so we're reviewing those improvements we've made to see if those numbers still stay as they are right now in our books on level 1 and 2. But so we're trying to get it as accurate as we can in that sense. So where we have showing the 5, we're probably closer to 5.5. And we don't buy a foot of land for each person that moves in the area. So it kind of goes up and down. There's been some years where we've been over and then we go under. So it kind of just rolls.
Makes sense. Thank you. Any questions from the commission? Okay. Administrative staff reports. It looks like a monthly Forester's report. Preston?
Hello again, Preston Hill. So I'm accustomed to giving a monthly report to the Urban Forestry Subcommittee. It's really just a rundown of what we've been working on since the previous meeting, what we continue to work on, what our plans are for the next month. So if you'll entertain me, I'll just kind of continue to give that monthly report here at these meetings. That way you guys can get to know what we do. Since last month, the crew's been busy. They've done some road improvements on the main access road going down into Post Falls Community Forest. So if you're familiar with Post Falls Community Forest on the West Riverview Trailhead, there's kind of a main access road that's also a foot trail that goes down to the base or the bottomlands. We did some mini excavator work that removed a bunch of the berms, the raised berms on the side. The whole idea is to outflow the slope of that road and shed more surface water off of that road to reduce erosion. There's a couple future steps of that. We'll talk about those in the future, but that round of work is complete. There were some fencing repairs that were done between the Post Falls Community Forest and the Henderson property. So if you've been hiking around down there and you come in from the Chameleon Park trailhead, you go down some rock steps down into the Lady Fern Creek drainage, and you might look to your right and see a chain link fence between two properties. That's the Henderson family, And so they're a pretty strategic partner for us for access into that site. We had a tree fall across that fence, and that repair's been done. For the past year, we've been trying to get a Friends of Post Falls Community Forest volunteer group off the ground. The ultimate goal is to get that to be a standalone nonprofit organization of its own. But for now, we've been sort of stewarding that along until we get enough dedicated volunteers to create a board for that nonprofit. And so for the winter months, we've done presentations to that group once per month. And then in the good weather months, we do volunteer projects. So we've been doing those presentations. Brian did a presentation last time about the history of Parks and Recreation in Post Falls. So he spent a lot of time, and I learned a bunch from what he did there. We have submitted an application to receive an AmeriCorps group of volunteers. I'm not sure if you're familiar with the AmeriCorps group or not. I was not. So this would be a group of 8 to 12 young adults from outside of our area who come to our area to assist us with various projects. So the number one main project that we put in for the application for is a half loop trail about 3/8 of a mile long in Black Bay Park. Black Bay Park has been a challenging park for us topographically to get in and out of with equipment for forest management. We experienced a lot of bark beetle mortality there. And to manage bark beetles the best, you have to remove that tree material from the site to keep the population of that injurious insect down as much as possible. So it's a challenge to get that material out of there. The idea behind this half loop trail is that we could get small vehicles in there a little deeper, inserted into the forest to get that out. It was a pretty lengthy application process for the AmeriCorps group. We'll find out soon whether we're actually going to get that group. If they are here, it will be for 6 weeks from the end of April through the beginning of June. So we're hopeful for that. Our arboriculture field crew has been busy with sign obstruction pruning. Every year, the street department gives us a list of traffic signs and signals throughout the city that are partially or completely obstructed by vegetation. So in the winter months, our crew goes around and does the necessary clearance pruning on that list. Pretty extensive list every year, but the arboriculture crew completed that, so that is finished for this year. We took a field trip over to one of our partners in the Kalispel tribe near Usk in Washington. So this particular individual runs their native plant nursery, specifically with riparian area plants. So they do some stream bank restoration work over there on their reservation, and we have 2.5 miles of stream banks, Spokane River shoreline, in our city sites. And so that's one of the areas that we need to manage, and we definitely have identified some restoration projects on our sites. So it was a good opportunity for us to go over there and see how they do things, and glean some tips and tricks. So we did that. I wasn't able to make this one, but Daniel went over to Dishman Hills Conservancy and did sort of the same thing, networking opportunity with a natural areas and trails partner over there. I understand that was good. We got some pretty good feedback. Most of these kind of things we come away with a pretty good feeling about how we do things compared to others, but it is always good to pick up information whenever we can. So those are the things we finished since last month. What we're currently working on is that all the field staff are working on natural area tree removals. Most of these are dead standing trees from beetle kill. And so once a year in the winter, again, when population and visitors to those sites is low, we go in and remove those trees and usually remove the material from the areas. I think the group is about to finish up that round of removals. But every year that takes us about a month to do that work. So the next thing here is that our professional agency in the arboriculture world is the International Society of Arboriculture. So that is an international group. It has regional chapters. We happen to be a part of the Pacific Northwest chapter of the ISA. So the Pacific Northwest chapter of the ISA is currently working on a curriculum for a new credential, a new qualification, and that is a wildfire risk reduction qualification. So the idea behind this credential is that if you are a homeowner or a small property owner, you may not necessarily hire a forester, a professional forester who's well versed in wildfire to come out and assess your property. You might interact much more closely with a tree service or an arborist to come out and work on the trees on your property. There's a little bit of a disconnect there, though, because arborists don't necessarily feel that they have the qualifications or the knowledge to recommend wildfire-related treatments to those properties. So the PNW chapter is trying to create a qualification that gives those property owners confidence in the arborists' abilities and knowledge, and then also gives the arborists the confidence and the ability and the knowledge to make those recommendations. I bring all of this up because I'm on that committee developing that curriculum, and so we're working on that, and that's part of what's going on right now. We are going through a round of code revisions, Title 12, which is where the city code related to urban forestry and city street trees will exist, is under review. We're just finishing up the final touches on those revisions. I believe they will be going before City Council in April, is what I think I've heard.
Early May.
Okay. And if you're interested, I'm happy to share that code with you at the next meeting. It's pretty exciting. We did some safety training. Workforce Training Center does a Safety Fest every year, and so we try to take advantage of those offerings. And so our field staff has spent quite a bit of time there. We did hire a new urban forestry seasonal technician. Like I said, her name is Alex Avery. She does come to us from the city of Spokane. This is the second time we have done that collaboration with the city of Spokane, where they have a 6-month seasonal employee, and then we hire them as for the other 6 months of the year, and that's worked out pretty good. Tyler, who you met earlier tonight, is teaching a chainsaw safety and operations class to our parks maintenance staff. So this is the first one of those that we've put on in a while, and I think the first time Tyler has taught the class, but he's doing a great job. I think you heard me mention Randy. Randy Sennell is our city arborist. He is the full-time member of staff who couldn't be here tonight. The reason he couldn't be here is because he's attending the Municipal Forestry Institute, which is a week-long professional development course that's put on somewhere in the nation every year. This year it's in Northern California, and so urban foresters and city arborists from all over the country get together and really hone their professional skills and collaborate and network on what works and what doesn't, and how different folks do things. I attended in 2015, and so Randy's up this year, so I'm sure he'll bring back lots of nuggets for us. Let's see. So coming up, we are hoping to expand our nursery. So if you didn't know, we have a small, what we call pot-in-pot tree nursery at our Parks Yard over on 3rd Avenue. And so we try to develop species of trees that aren't commonly available at nurseries for a price that's lower than what's usually available at nurseries. The goal has always been to produce about 100 1.5-inch caliper nursery trees that we use for park tree replacements and street tree plantings. So I think this is our 3rd year doing that, and we're starting to produce that number. And so it's time to expand the nursery just a little bit and improve it. So that will be coming up hopefully this spring, although the spring is starting to get really busy. And then the last thing I have here is that we had the fire in the community forest a couple of years ago, the Parkway fire. What can happen in a forestry environment when you have a wildfire is that the trees that are not killed from the wildfire can become overly stressed from injury or drought or some combination thereof. And that makes them particularly susceptible to bark beetle invasion. So we identified patches of Douglas fir stands surrounding the Parkway fire. And there is a pheromone packet that you can staple to those trees. And that pheromone packet, it's an artificial communication to adult bark beetles that basically wards them off. It basically says, this area is already occupied by bark beetles. There's nothing to see here. Keep it moving. So distributing these MCH packets, these pheromone packets, is a preventative measure to minimize the invasion of that injurious bark beetle. So we did that last spring for the first time after the fire, and then we have another round of that this spring. So it's a lot of hiking around, a lot of logistics for setting it out in the grid pattern that it's supposed to protect the trees. This will be the second and probably final year that we do it. So that's coming up here in March really soon. So do you have any questions for me on any of that?
That was awesome. Thank you.
Yeah,
Really great.
you bet. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thanks, Preston.
Thank you, Preston.
All right, Dave, it looks like director's report. You're up.
Yeah, I don't know if I want to follow that. So I'm going to keep it to just basically 3 items. The first one Preston touched on was the merging of the Park and Rec Commission and the Urban Forestry Committee. That is continuing. 2 of our Urban Forestry Committee members have indicated an interest in continuing to serve the Parks and Recreation Department. So we've asked them to complete a city commission application. Those will go forward to the mayor for his acceptance, and then it would go to the city council for their confirmation. If any of those, I should have gone with a bigger print on this. If any of those committee members don't go forward or don't want to, then we would look at other applicants. So we will, coming up in March, we'll have 2 openings on the commission. It's my hope to have this portion of the transition completed by the March meeting. So we're trying to move that forward fairly quick. The second part of this merging and transition is to identify and outline a formal and specific duties for the Park and Rec Commission that brings some of the duties that you folks have had and handle and some of the stuff that the Urban Forestry Committee do. So we'll continue to review those levels of service, the minimum amenity standards, those things that tie into our CIP and all of our planning. You'll continue to weigh in on proposed park designs. Sometimes it's the whole design, sometimes it's, depending on the developer we're working with, it may just be, that we get to decide on a playground, what type or any of that, but that will continue. And then, of course, parkland acquisition. You're our sounding board as we go forward with these opportunities. On the forestry side, Preston mentioned that the city's rewriting the Urban Forestry Code. And in one of those sections, it has to do with the appeals. So if somebody does not agree with the staff's decision related to the street trees, they do have a right to appeal, and that goes to me. If once again they're unhappy with if I've upheld what the staff has said, then you folks would become the final Board of Appeals on that. It doesn't happen a lot. We've had it happen a couple times. But we still want to have some kind of process in place so that there is a method for the public to address when they feel that something's not correct. Those are probably some of the big things. But there's our other items we're looking in, but we're going to try and make it a little bit more formal, a little more structured, so everybody knows what to expect when they serve on the commission. I know there's been some talk from commission or from city council about even requiring some attendance into special events to help with those and stuff. So we'll be bringing that all forward. That's probably not going to be finalized until the beginning of the summer. So there is time in that, and you will have either this meeting or the following, once we've lined it out, you'll have a chance to look at it, comment, give us feedback. So it's not going to be done in a vacuum. Normally, Robbie would be doing this, construction updates. I'm not going to give you any pretty pictures. But the work on the Black Bay Boardwalk is continuing and underway. It seems to be on target for completion at the start of the summer. And then after that, we will do the dedication. The City Planning Department is currently completing their review of the design for the Montrose sports fields. That's the 2 softball fields in the parking lot. And we're hoping to see that work starting this spring. Then this next week, Robbie will be presenting to the City Council on a request for a vacation at Warren Playfield. And there's actually an alley that runs through the center of the playfield. And we want to vacate that so we can put a shelter and other things over that site. So it's housekeeping. And then we'll be moving forward with some of the proposed work on that, the parking and some of the upgrades into the park. So, sorry. The joy of dry mouth. The final item of note is that I have provided the city with a notice of retirement. And I will be retiring at the end of the year, so December 31st, 25 will be my last day. Wow. City Council has given their direction on the selection process for a new department head, and the city will be hiring a firm to facilitate the search, the recruitment, selection, and transition. And that process will be starting next month with the hiring of the firm. It's the city's desire to have a period that overlaps when a person's finally selected with my leaving. So if the person is in-house, that overlap will be much shorter. If the person is from outside of the city, it could be up to 2 months overlap. So don't know if I get to stay on my desk or if I have to go out to one of the cubicles. We'll figure that one out.
Pack your things.
Yeah, maybe it's rock, paper, scissors, I don't know. But they'll be doing job shadowing, introduction to stakeholders. There's a lot of different stakeholders that we interface with, reviewing projects, policies, backgrounds, trying to decipher some of my writing in old files if they're that brave, and if I can actually decipher it myself. The wish in all of this is to have a transition that is smooth and as seamless as possible, to keep the department moving forward efficiently and the projects just to continue to happen and stuff. So I've been here a long time. It's time for some new blood. My staff has been telling me that for years. I think the public too. They keep asking me, when are you going to retire? So now everybody knows you're the final segment of that, and you're the first on the public notice. So
Congratulations. Yeah, that's exciting.
thank you. I now have to go find out what my next career is going to be.
I think you have plenty to do.
No, I always thought I'd be farming or doing the food trailer, but since Marnie decided that she was retired from the food trailer last year, won't be doing that, and after the surgeries on the back, I won't be farming, at least not to the level I was and thought I would be, so I'll find something else to do. So that's all I have.
Awesome. Well, congratulations again. You've been a huge part of
Yeah.
the city of Post Falls, and your time is appreciated.
Okay, And thank you. And I said that was all I have, but as you guys all know, there's a mic here and I can't stop talking. So there is one last thing I do have to do. So Angela Snyder, she has decided not to continue with the Park and Rec Commission. She has other obligations she has to go to, but I just wanted to thank you for your service, for your views on what we're doing, and just for the support. It is appreciated.
Thank you. It's been such a pleasure. I wish I could continue, but family matters are going to take me to travel a little bit more so. But this has just been great. And you guys do a fantastic job. This will end 15 years of community service for me, 13 in Utah in the Community Development Department where I worked, and then serving here on the commission. So thank you for having me. It's really been a pleasure. And I'll be seeing you.
Okay, now I'm done.
Okay, are you sure? Okay, any comments from the commission before we adjourn this evening?
It's sad to lose a commissioner and sad to lose
I
a
know.
director, but change is inevitable, so.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, we'll go ahead and close out at 6:56. Good evening.